What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, we conclude our little trilogy here of WB's failures with WB Montreal, which might be the most frustrating because they've always kind of been the most frustrating studio, right? They've had the most canceled projects, I think, of anybody. Suicide Squad back in the day. You have something like what we're going to talk about today. There's been a lot of stuff that they've tried to do, and they should have had more games out in between Arkham Origins and then Gotham Knights, but that didn't happen. So this makes me pretty mad. I mean, the Wonder Woman video, I got really mad, but this one, a lot of what ifs. And again, in terms of that mismanagement, not being able to read the room, not being able to read gamers, you're going to see it immediately here, okay? Back to Jason Schreier's article one last time. WB Games Montreal, which helmed Batman Arkham Origins and supported other projects, is one of the biggest pieces in Warner Bros. Collection of gaming assets. In late 2016, not long after Haddad took over control of the division, the studio received a new mandate. At the time, the success of titles like Grand Theft Auto Online and Destiny, which generate recurring revenue streams long after release by convincing players to spend money on in-game purchases, was ramping up the pressure on executives across the industry to push for their own live service games. At WB, the favored buzzword became digitally powered. The Montreal studio began working on a new live service Batman game that had hoped would freshen up the franchise by ditching Bruce Wayne. Halfway through development, as it struggled to make progress on the new project, the studio dropped the live service component. In 2022, it released Gotham Knights, which went on to receive mediocre reviews and generate tepid sales. Even so, based on the hard-learned lessons from the previous development cycle and equipped with new, proven technology, the Montreal studio leaders wanted to make another iteration of Gotham Knights, a 1.5 version that would fix some of its predecessor's flaws, but their bosses nixed the idea, according to people familiar with the plans. In the months that followed, the Montreal studio continued trying to get a new project off the ground. First, they pitched a game based on the comic book anti-hero John Constantine, who was played by Keanu Reeves in the 2005 feature film. Haddad's team, led by Vice President of Production Ben Bell, initially said they were excited about the idea, but when asked for budget and timeline approvals, they remained non-committal, according to people familiar with the plans. After months of waffling, Bell suggested they should work on instead a game starring more recognizable characters like the Joker or the Flash. They chose to go with the superhero Speedster. But in 2023, WB released Flash, a lavish movie starring Ezra Miller, which bombed at the box office. The video game has since been scrapped. Over the past 2 years, most of Montreal's leadership has resigned, not just because of the lack of new games, but also due to frustration with their corporate bosses, according to people familiar. Now the Montreal studio is helping out with other projects, such as Wonder Woman, while working on a pitch for a new game based on Game of Thrones. So, good job. You've eliminated a DC studio team from your portfolio. Again, this is a theme, right? I mean, that's why I wanted to do this as like a three-part kind of event, three-part series. How do you mess up this badly? How? Literally how? You know, again, Gotham Knights was nothing massively special. I think it sold over 5 million units, but it wasn't anything that was going to massively move the needle. All right, whatever. You know, they struggled. They made games before. They made games after. How do you let it get to this point, right? Now, I will say, to make the first idea to do a Gotham Knights 2 is probably the wrong idea, right? You probably, even though you could, and we talked, I mean, my dream, okay, in the best of circumstances with what WB Montreal was capable of, okay, I said Teen Titans because you already set up like the age and young and you had people as part of the Teen Titans already. You had a good base, I think, to do co-op and all that jazz, to do a Teen Titans game, okay? That's how I would have, if you wanted to not leave that franchise and you say, oh, we spent so many years like building that lore of that world, fine, make a Teen Titans game and you can continue it that way. But to literally make a Gotham Knights 2, I think is unrealistic. I think was always kind of unrealistic, right? The Constantine one, cool. I mean, I can understand why you wouldn't do it, right? The film was not, again, the biggest film of all time. I mean, I believe it's getting a second film, though, now, right? But it's just not something that, again, I think is going to move the needle all that much. Let's talk about The Flash, okay? And this is what I kind of talked about just in the beginning of the video. This is, again, that pulse on the industry type thing. Let me tell you something, okay? Ezra Miller and that movie The Flash has nothing to do whatsoever with the success or failure of a game. I'm gonna say it one more time, right? Nothing. absolutely nothing to do just because one thing doesn't work. And I said this on a live stream like yesterday. It's the same stupid kind of mentality to say, oh, well, we can't possibly start working. And I don't know if they've done this. I actually assume they have because it is dumb. So it's something I think they would have tried. They could say, okay, well, we don't want to do a Superman game until we see how the Superman movie performs, which I could 1,000% see one of the executives saying that still works there. And that couldn't, again, be the more wrong thing to do, right? At least to me. I don't see how the movie succeeding or failing has anything to do with the game. You know how the game would perform? Based off of the game. If you make a good Flash game, it's going to perform. Or it's going to perform or not perform based off the game itself, based off the quality, based off whatever the heck you're doing over there, the things that grab people, the things that don't grab people. That is what's going to do well. The movie failed for 1,000 different reasons, right? I mean, it's so separate from anything that the game, unless you had like Ezra Miller starring as the Flash in your game, which you would be an idiot for doing that as well, right? But it's like, unless you did that, there's really no reason to make the correlation. And I know, I've already seen people talk on social media where it's like, this is terrible, like to see that we actually almost got it. See, again, like this is why it actually almost makes me more mad than like Wonder Woman, right? Wonder Woman is just, you have this thing and you have no idea what you're doing, right? So you've obtained it, you have it, and you tell people you're going to do it, and then you just have no freaking clue what you're doing. At least with the Flash, we didn't know, but yet again, that's a good and bad thing, right? It's good because it's like we didn't see them in real time F it up, but it's bad because it's like, well, this is how we find out. This is how you find out about a Flash game that we could have had in an alternate dimension that they've been working on for years, couple years. It probably seems like 2 or so years they were working on this Flash game, and they only canceled it. And this is, again, what makes me so mad. You only cancel it because of the movie. Did you cancel it because of like the game itself, or was it literally you saw the box office and you said, oh, no way. No, we cannot release. They're not going to buy it. Why wouldn't we buy it? Why wouldn't we buy the Flash game? Again, like, does it have terrible CG? Does it have writers and directors like jumping out of buildings and stuff to find the right one over like a series of years and years? Does it have a Ezra Miller who's just an incredibly like problematic individual that also very much hurt the reputation? Does it have those things? No, it doesn't. Actually, it's completely separate. It'll sink or swim on its own. You know what I mean? So how you say the one leads to the other, I have no freaking clue. And there again lies, I think, a huge issue with WB games in general. The higher ups, the people that really, and it's the people too. It's the people that work on it. We talked about it with Monolith and stuff. Like, if you're not creating and you're not like doing good, but at the same time, well, what direction are you getting? Because at this point, I believe they get no direction. At this point, they don't get answers to things. They're told to do things that they don't really want to do. They're not equipped to do. The people that tell the other people what to do, right? Like high to low. The higher ups tell these people things that just make absolutely no sense. So it's like, okay, well, your leadership is terrible. So how are you supposed to perform? And I can understand that. I totally get how that would lead to a workforce that also has no idea what it's doing because their management doesn't either. So where we're left with, I guess, is that there's still a support team, which they kind of have always been, right? That's okay, I suppose. And I guess they're making a Game of Thrones game now. I will say in terms of one positive, I think that could work. You make a Game of Thrones game. We've said it 1,000 times. I'll say it one more. You just do it like The Witcher. Just literally make a Game of Thrones game like The Witcher 3. I've said this for like Pirates of the Caribbean. Making a Pirates game. I know you got Black Flag and other stuff, but just make a open world, AAA, quest-based RPG of whatever thing you're saying. So Game of Thrones or Pirates or whatever. And yeah, that takes a lot of work. That would be a lot of money. That would take a lot of time. I think that game would freaking rock 9 out of 10 times, depending on who's making it and how good they are, right? So, that could be good, but I guess, and that's fine. Like I would get excited for that and I would cover that and support that and all that jazz. I guess just one final send off there. They're one of the few studios you have making DC games. So at this point, who do you have that's doing a DC game? You have Monolith that has no idea what they're doing. You have Rocksteady that might just be doing a remake for all we know. Maybe not, but also, do you trust them? That's another question. So there's two. You don't know if NetherRealm is going to do Injustice 3, so you can't fully count on them. TT Games, right, Lego, you have no idea if they're going to do DC. Who do you have? You have two studios. You have two teams that are doing DC games. One has no clue what's happening, and the other could be just doing a remake. That is your DC portfolio for the next, 5 to 6 years is two things. Everybody else is doing either Harry Potter or Wizarding World, Game of Thrones, Mortal Kombat for the rest of their lives, whatever. How do you get to this point, right? And again, this is the mismanagement. This is where we're now at. So that's honestly, besides the Flash and that whole kind of arc, that's the next most disappointing or sad thing about this whole thing is you've eliminated a DC studio because you shut down the DC part of them. They literally tried to give you a DC product and you told them no, right? You told them no because the movie that just wasn't good, starring a problematic person I mean, again, those are two big things. I mean, there's other things that hurt that movie, whatever. That's why you're shutting down the game. So you kill off your DC part, and now here we are where they're pitching Game of Thrones. Do you know how long it takes, by the way, to go from pitch to like the game actually coming out? You're going to have to wait like 5 to 6 years for the next WB Montreal game, which is just fantastic because we haven't waited enough time already for their next game. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. As always, make sure you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.